All right, we're live. My name's Justin from Modern Mixing. Hopefully, everybody that's here knows that. But I'm with a good friend of mine named Ghislain Brind'Amour, and if you've never heard of him, let me see. Some of G's credits include Rihanna, Victoria Duffield, and also some Canadian artists that are actually really popular down here. Anjulie, Karl, Kristina Maria. But more than that, G's actually become a really, really good friend of modern mixing. So I'm really happy to call him, a friend and not just an acquaintance. So welcome, G, to the webinar, and let's get it started.
Yeah, man. Hey, thanks for having me, by the way. Was looking forward to this all week there.
Yeah, for sure. And actually, I was just down in Montreal with G. We were working on some stuff, and yeah, so we'll talk about more about that later. But it's pretty exciting, and I was happy to have G there because he really helped. He was actually really instrumental in the session to get some of the sounds that I was looking for. So, but I'll tell you all about that stuff later. We can start with some questions because the last webinar I did was actually pretty cool. It was just me in the webinar, but there's a lot of technical glitches and stuff like that. So I felt the webinar went a little bit.
Fault, or is that?
It was probably more the user's fault, as in me. But
Excuse me.
but yeah, so I learned a little bit. So now we got you on the Hangouts, and yeah, I'm here to moderate, so I can quickly just go through the questions and kind of shoot them off, and then you can kind of do your thing. But let's start with this one here. Select it. And I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce this. I think it's Russian. It's BNKTOP, the first name. I'm sorry, man. I really don't know how to pronounce your name. But he or she asks, what is the difference between the construction of the mix at the concert and the studio and in the studio? So I guess between like a live mix and a studio mix, I guess.
Oh, okay. Well, I think if I understand correctly, so like in a live scenario, I think that if you're touring with this act, then you probably have a little more time to sort of get creative and stuff like that. But I've been tossed into live session scenarios where it's figure it out and stuff. So I think it's more about just getting that energy blend right, and then you kind of go from there and hope that nothing blows up or feedbacks or anything like that. And in the studio, well, you have the time to sort of experiment. You usually get like a rough mix, so you're gonna get like ideas from everyone, and you have time to talk about it. You have time to think about it. You can go to sleep on the mix and open it back up again and stuff like that. So I think the main difference is one is in the moment, and the other you can sort of spread out over time and kind of leave a bigger sonic imprint, if that makes sense.
And the sonic imprint, I'm assuming, is the studio portion.
Yes, exactly. So, like, when you're in studio, I mean, once you're on it for 12 hours or whatever amount of time that you're on it, I mean, you're definitely leaving your personality on the song, like your choice of reverbs and EQs and all that. I think when you're in a live scenario, most times it's just about capturing what's there and making sure that it's relayed properly to the audience in a sort of short format.
Well, okay, so let me mark that question as done. But one thing that actually I like talking to you about, or at least I like communicating with you as regularly as I can, is I know that you do a lot of experimentation in your mixes, and also you do a lot of experimenting with new plugins, downloading new plugins and then testing them out and seeing which ones, fit your workflow.
Mm-hmm.
So this is something I want to ask you, like, is there any new plugins? Because I don't think we've talked in a while about this stuff, but is there any new plugins or at least anything that you've been using lately more that you find has been working? And then also what have you been using it on, and how does it sound, or what are the effects that you're going for when you're using it?
That's a great question. I think the newer toys, like as they integrate into my workflow, certain things. At least I know how they sound, and I know like what what I'll get out of them and stuff like that. Lately, the newer one, we sort of spoke about this, but the plus 10 dB from Boz Digital is super cool. I like how it sounds. I like the tone I get as soon as I insert it on something. The most success I've had with it has been on vocals, although I had it for kind of like a world music kind of thing, and I had it all over the drums, overheads, kicks, snares, and stuff like that, and it just works. It has like an EQ section that's really helps you kind of control the tone a little bit, and the compressor, although it, you know, if you look at it, it seems like it's doing all kinds of crazy things, but it's very musical, and you have that magical blend knob that you can sort of, you know, dial into to you know, to taste if you want a little less of that color. And I like it because it does something right away, you know, minus the insane level gain. Once you kind of adjust that and you bypass it, it has a very pleasing effect on most sources that I've tossed it on. So it's rare that it doesn't sound good. Now, whether or not it's perfect for the track, well, that I'll find out as I'm mixing along there. So that's kind of like, I guess it saturates and, you know, kind of lets me control the tone.
Yeah.
As far as new things, I've sort of it's funny actually, but in the last little while I've sort of held back because I'm sort of been contemplating and looking for, you know, upgrading my system and changing you know, going to Pro Tools 11 and all that stuff there. So I've sort of been resisting the urge a bit to hop on too many new things there. A cool reverb that I tried, I haven't bought it yet, but I almost probably will, is from Exponential Audio. They're the Phoenix Verb. It's kind of like this transparent space that you just slap it on, and it's like there's no character to it. I usually like character verbs and effects, but this one just kind of works. It just soaks right in the track. It's kind of crazy what it does. And it's the type of thing where you feel it more than you hear it, but it really has a pretty big impact. So I was pretty happy with that. Plus, like, he gave me an extension on the demo period there. I think Michael there, the head designer guy there, the guy who owns the company. So that was neat. And I think those are two of the more recent things that I've tried that I've been like pretty pleased with.
Okay, so you're talking about the Boz Digital and the sound of that. Is that the sound of the actual like the EQ section and the compressor section, or is that like as soon as you slap that on something, you immediately notice a sound like similar to how, you know, outboard would work?
Yes, that'd be a good way to say it. I mean, first of all, there's a pretty wild level jump when you slap it on initially, probably on purpose. So if you can kind of control that. I'm familiar with the hardware. I used the hardware for many years, and it was always this thing that just worked, especially on drums. Like, put it on like a live snare there for like a rock kit or something. It's just crazy. We usually have one, so you can only use it on one source, and I usually end up putting it on snare. But now in the plugin world, we can do whatever. But yeah, it's just it gives the sound a vibe, you know, right away, and that's fun to work with. It's inspiring, at least sonically, that when you put something on and something happens. Sometimes you don't want that, but like on vocals, or, you know, like I don't have much control over the quality of the recordings I get. So sometimes just giving it a little something extra off the bat can kind of direct me in a way, at least with, you know, inspiration to the mix and stuff like that. So it's kind of just what it does to the source that's interesting. And yeah, I guess it's as close to hardware as you'll get on a plugin, as far as from whatever I've tried, anyways.
Okay, so there's Alexander Ewing. He's asking, I'm something of a novice in terms of the technical side of mixing and mastering, primarily a musician, but I was hoping you could advise me in as simple terms as possible how to glue a mix together. Thanks in advance, Alex.
Yeah, Alex, thanks for your question, man. That's a good question. That is the holy grail of questions, how to glue a mix together. You know, that the first thing I'll say is I don't know. I don't even know if I do that, but I think it's really, first of all, not overthinking every step of the way. You know, like sometimes you just need a reverb. You know, and you know, like you can get creative with it and stuff like that. But if you don't know what you're looking for, don't spend 2 hours searching for it, because, you know, the answer probably won't come. The other thing too, and I used to do this when I started, is I used to solo everything, EQ it, move on to the next thing, solo it, and stuff like that. And I sort of individualized the sounds to what I thought they would sound good. But then when I put it together, it didn't sound good. My most successful mixes have been when I have all the faders in. I'm just hearing the music and I make decisions from the music standpoint. So, you know, like if I solo it, it might sound really weird, but in the context of the mix, when I'm mixing it, it sounds great. And that, I think, is like the number one thing that sort of changed as far as my workflow and my productivity was concerned, as getting a mix going, was worrying a little less about the individual things and kind of concentrating on the overall picture more so. So I think if you're going in, and sometimes it's hard, it's a mental challenge. You got to like sort of force yourself to focus on an element, but without soloing it it's hard. But if you practice, I guarantee you will get there. And I think that's the best piece of advice I can give you to like kind of glue and mix together.
Okay, so you're talking about the balance, and that's at least that's what I got out of it, and I think I'm on the same page as you with that. But maybe you can dig a little bit deeper. So even sometimes concentrating on the balance alone isn't enough to make the mix feel like everything is together as one unit. So maybe we can dig a little bit deeper as I'm just going to throw something out there, but like maybe the mix bus. Is there anything in particular that you put on the mix bus that you feel like it gives the overall sound something that, makes it more cohesive and sounds like everything's working as one unit?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be different every time. I remember we even spoke about this last time we were together, and I mean, like every couple weeks or so, I'm changing whatever thought process I have on the mix bus. So I used to compress a lot on the mix bus, and now I don't compress at all. Actually, I haven't compressed a mix, although I might have a compressor on it, but it's usually because it's adding a little tone or something to it. But yeah, it really depends on the song. I'd have to, it would be very specific to whatever I'm doing. As far as the actual mix bus is concerned, there usually is some plug-in on the mix bus though. So could be could be a slate thing, or I like the Klang Helm. They have like a saturator.
Mm-hmm.
I like the desk mode on that on some mixes on like kind of like heavier hip hop stuff or whatever. Maybe like a tape machine. You could try shaving a few dBs off with a compressor there, like the Waves one there, the SSL, or like the Slate one. That could help you, but I don't find that would be the number one element to gluing your mix together. I really feel that it would be more, like I said, just working the track as a whole, instead of individual parts. So like the sum of everything kind of makes it more important than what the individual sounds are.
Okay, cool. So it looks like we have someone on here, and by the email that I got, the name is Blue Jay. So if that's the name you want to go by, then let's go by that. But he wants to ask a question. So
sure. What's up, Blue Jay?
I'm good. Are you hearing me, by the way? I'm not sure if my mic.
Can't hear you. Is there any way to turn up the mic or something, or get closer to the mic?
Okay.
Yeah, there we go. That's good.
Cool, we got you.
That's good.
All right. I just quickly set this up a while ago, so I'm just
Actually, if you don't mind, where are you located?
St. Lucia.
Nice.
Yeah. I was here the last time.
Thanks for stopping by.
Yeah, no problem. Jason. I go by the name Jason. Don't worry about the Blue Jay thing. It was just a time ago email.
Cool, man.
Yeah.
So what's your question?
The question, well, I don't have my question right away, actually, because I had one from last week that I wanted to ask, and I can't remember exactly what it is. So I was just joining you guys for now, if y'all don't mind.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. When you're ready, just let us know, and we'll pipe you in there. I'm sure Justin can arrange that.
Yeah. Okay. Just if you want, I'm just gonna mute you for now. But when you have a question, maybe just send me an email, or you can just put it in the question box, and I'll get you going.
All right. No problem.
Thanks. Okay. So let me see here. Looks like Clinton Robinson is asking, hello. If I have an 808 set, and actually I think this is more of a production question, but
okay, well, let's
Yeah, sure. No, I know you produce as well. So
we'll
if I have an 808 sub bass, do you write chords first, then tune it to the tonic note of each chord, or is it okay to run 808 that is in key of the song through the whole song?
Well, I mean, look, just instinctually, it just has to sound right, So that if the key of the song on the 808 and it drives the song and it sounds good, there's no like it clashes, musically, then yeah, go for it. If it doesn't feel right though, you might have to experiment a little bit with just getting the right notes or the melody of the 808 to kind of sit right. But there's no rules for that. It's just whatever sounds good is right. That's for sure.
And I guess the only thing that I would add to that is that just by the way that the question is constructed, it seems to me like the whole process of the 808 is being overthought just a little bit. Like, tuning it to the tonics and this and that. I would literally just have the 808, going, or whatever you want to call it, beating or hitting with the song, and then wherever it sounds wrong, I would just sort of tune it and then make it fit with that section, and then that's it. But if it sounds good the way it is in each section, which, because a lot of trap style 808 style music, it's literally like, one note through the entire record and maybe like a couple changes here and there. So I wouldn't overthink that, but I'm just expanding on.
Yeah. It just has to sound good, man. Beat has to be good. Doesn't matter how you get there.
All right, cool. This one is by Tobias Gronberg. Hopefully I said that right. In a time where everyone with a MIDI keyboard and a Mac can upload a track to SoundCloud, do you have any advice on how to get recognized in an endless crowd? Sincerely, and then he says shameless plug.
Yeah, man, like that's the reality. We everyone has access to the tools that we use to make records. So I mean, that's a good thing. It's fun. When I started out when I was a teenager, I mean, it was complicated. Had like old school MIDI, and I was trying to make beats, and it was super hard, compared to what it is now. And then learning the whole studio thing, and I went on tape and all that stuff. So I understand, and it can be frustrating, but I think that first of all, you got to be ready to work. There's absolutely no substitute to just working, and yeah, sometimes you got to work a little more intelligently than hard. Your associations are important, and not being so close-minded with your associations. If you know that someone you're working with can help someone else that you're working with, get them together. And just kind of expand the net a bit, and because it's hard to get noticed. So like your thing has to be the best, and usually you get the best stuff when everyone's working on the same thing and on the same page, and everyone's sort of happy to be kind of part of a group. So if you, like I said, just keep at it, and there's no like, I don't, getting, for us engineers, I don't know if I'll get a million followers on Twitter, so I don't think that that's the solution. I think it's really just working and providing the best service that you can, and being ready to go a little above what they're asking. So if they're asking you for something, try to always give them a little more. And money is a component, but don't make it the first component, because it's a long road to financial stability in this work. So make sure you enjoy it first, and make sure that you enjoy working with the people that work with you, and make sure that they enjoy working with you, because that's the only way that you're going to continue.
Okay, so let me expand on that a little bit, because you mentioned the long road to financial security, but maybe you can touch on that fact a little bit, because mixing, or not just mixing, but music in general, it doesn't generally happen overnight, or even in a year or 2 years. There's kind of this long struggle, and then it's always like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Sometimes it's like 3 steps back and then 2 steps forward. And then you work with the client, and I know me and you have had these conversations before, but you feel like you're about to get your hands on some really, really big project, and all of a sudden something happens, and then you get sidestepped, and then someone else comes in, takes that gig after you've worked hard on it and stuff like that. So maybe you can touch on that a little bit, like the perseverance aspect of it, and not just like looking for that quick fix of like, well, how does everybody know who I am? You know what I mean? Like,
well, that's the thing. I mean, I've been at it for, I started when I was in my teens. I'm almost in my mid-30s now, so like it's been a long run, and it's mostly been a somewhat frustrating, like you said, 2 steps back for every step forward that you take. But I don't know. Like, to me, it was always this is what I do. So I always found a way to sort of kind of be in the studio. And yeah, I've done tons of stuff where I thought it was going to be it, and then next thing you know, you're bumped. You're not the guy anymore, and then the single goes platinum or whatever. Like, so many times I've worked behind the scenes, I've gotten things so close to where it had to be, and then someone else swooped in because they had their name or whatever, and it's frustrating, and it's not the line of work and this type of scenario is definitely not for everyone, and you can't. At the end of the day, you can't take it too personally. even though we all have kind of egos, and it gets crushed pretty easily in this business. But yes, the perseverance. I think that if you believe in yourself and your capabilities, you'll and you're willing to put yourself out there. And like I said, you got to give a little more than what they're asking. That's like there's no. I can't stress that enough. If they want, I don't know, $100 worth, give them $150 worth of time or whatever it is every single time, no matter who it is, because you really never know. There are sessions I thought were going to be just the worst thing ever. They turned out to be, I'm working with Rihanna right now and stuff like that. I had no idea. I just got a call, and I didn't feel like it because it was at 11 o'clock at night. But I said, studio, whatever. And I'd point myself and, oh, hey, cool. We got we got like a superstar here in the studio, and we're gonna do some work. And so it's like you never know. Just be open-minded, and like I said, just 110% every time. They're cliches, but it's so true. You gotta hang in there and just be willing to do a little more every single time.
And I think too, the ability to, the willingness to do it, I guess, all the time. And I think eventually, if you do it enough, you're going to get good, whether you're producing or mixing.
For sure.
As long as you have, I think, like a decent sense of taste and where the music industry is going, as long as you just sit there every day and just do it, like, you can't get worse. You have to get better, So I think a lot of people, especially in today's age with the internet, YouTube, everybody sees all these, YouTube sensations where they blow up overnight or whatever, that they think, okay, well, they did it, so I can do it that way. But the problem is like, if you don't have, the perseverance to kind of stretch over that, because that one hit might be good for, a certain period of time, and then after that, you don't have the follow-up because you don't have the fan base. You just have the people that are jumping on because you're the one-hit wonder, you're the trendy thing at that moment in time, So, like you were saying, I'm just,
yeah, of course.
A little extra sauce on top.
No, I love the sauce, dude. It's good. It's good, and they don't make TV shows about mix engineers, so so we gotta sort of sell ourselves and just, like I said, just be willing to do it. But yeah, you definitely won't get worse by doing it every day. That I can guarantee you. I mix, even as we're talking to Justin there, I mix quite a few songs every year, and they just keep getting better, and I don't, I'm still yet to be 100% satisfied with anything that I do, so it's an endless kind of struggle battle, but we'll get there. I don't know if we're diverging off the question a little bit at this point.
No. That's
it's good. It's good.
The more we can dig in, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, Jarrell says, I have many questions, but I cannot be greedy, LOL. Okay, thanks for your question. Okay, Rawl says, hi, do you use a summing box or you just make summing in the DAW? Thanks.
I currently don't have a summing box. I've tried a few, I tried the Dangerous and stuff and a couple other ones. And look, they all kind of do something. I don't know. I used to work on large SSLs and stuff like that, and even that, they're great, they're fun to work with and stuff, but I just think that you just listen to the music and kind of do what you have to do. So I don't think that'll make a summing box of 8 channels is going to make your mix that much better. It might, but to answer your question, no summing box. I've tried a few. I think they're cool, and I've thought up of ways to sort of stay in the box. I like the convenience, and when I send mixes out and they get back to me a month later with touch-ups or an edit or something like that, I just recalling all that stuff would be a bit of a nightmare. So I think that for my practicality in the box is good. But I've thought of ways, if I get a 8-channel Neve thing and feed drums through it or something like that would be cool. But currently no summing box in the mix, straight up DAW summing.
And actually, you told me this one time, and it's for whatever reason, it's always stuck with me. But mixing on an SSL or mixing in the box, it's kind of like in today's day and age, it's irrelevant. All it is really is just a different canvas. So if you're good enough at mixing, or let's say painting, let's kind of tie the two worlds together. If you're painting on a piece of paper, you're painting on a ridiculously good canvas. As long as you know what you're doing, then you're going to be able to make something really, really good on either, platforms, I guess you could say.
Absolutely, and I mean, it's getting better in the computer, and I guess I'm also of a computer generation, so the transition for me wasn't that hard. It kind of made sense, um, with budgets being smaller and the work coming and stuff like that. I needed to be able to pound these tracks out and be able to go back to them and stuff like that. And printing stems for 3 hours off an SSL, it's cool, but it's never quite the same. And people sometimes they don't like it when it's. Some people have sensitive hearing and they hear little minute changes, and that to explain to them, it's because we went through the board and then there's noise or whatever, and
Yeah.
it becomes a bit of a problem actually, most times. And I just, quite frankly, like like I said, the budgets aren't there, so it doesn't make sense to I don't know, it's for me anyways, to block out a room for X amount of dollars and then go back a month later to do touch-ups and stuff like that. And most clients aren't super down with that workflow, and then if there's scheduling conflicts or whatever, things have to flow pretty fast.
Okay, so Jason wants to come back here and ask you a question.
All right. Do it, Jay.
If I can, how do I unmute?
I could do it from my end. Okay, can you hear me?
There we go. Yeah, there we go.
Okay. So I was just about to ask, since you were speaking about mixing inside the door on hardware, which one do you prefer and why?
It's a big question. I just because I do it now, and that's the way I work, and I like mixing in the box. I think there's a bit of a freedom as far as I'm like creative. I like to do things and automate things all crazy and stuff like that, and automate like filters and stuff. Like I go pretty intense on little minor details, and I couldn't really do that on a console. I mean, I like hardware for sure. I love equipment and gear, and I've tried tons of gear, and I'll keep trying gear. I got there's a Joey kind of mix there. We know that place there, but they have tons of gear, and I try things out, the new toys that come out and stuff. So I mean, I love the stuff. It's just that as far as I just prefer the practicality and I find that the sound is pretty good now in the DAW. So I would go with the DAW workflow in 2015 and beyond. And if I can integrate seamlessly a few pieces of hardware here and there, which I do, then that's great. But I don't think I would ever switch my workflow back to like a large format console.
Okay. Because I was also wondering about like the recall factor. Like, say you're working on a mix on hardware, like how easy would it be to recall like settings you had from a last session or something?
Well, usually what I do is I commit to those hardware settings, so I'll print the track in the session. So like I have a couple of pieces of hardware, like an LA2A or something like that. So if I'll run a vocal through it, like I'll mix with it, but I usually once I leave, I'll print the vocal into the session with the LA2A on, so then I have that session. Same thing if I was using like an outboard reverb or something, I would print that into my mix session so that I wouldn't be dependent on the hardware. So, and then ultimately not have to recall it if there's a mix change.
Okay.
But I would probably still write it down. So.
And even if you do work on hardware, say like a summing box or something like that, eventually you're going to have to print into Pro Tools anyways.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? So that's something to keep in mind.
Absolutely. Yeah, but I'll write down the things. I mean, depends how much gear. I mean, I know guys that have like crazy hybrid setups with tons of outboard and stuff like that, and that even them, they have to write it down even if they print it, because if the client doesn't like the vocal tone or there's too much compression or something like that on the voice or on the snare, you have to go back and dial it back. So I mean, that you'd have to write it down. So it could be time consuming, but usually I try to get it right. That's my approach. Try to make it feel good there.
Yep. And sometimes getting it right, doesn't necessarily mean that the client's going to think it's right.
No. That's definitely a fact, but right for me, as right as possible, and then we'll deal with it after.
Yeah. Deal with the revisions after.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, cool. Jason, do you have any other questions that you had on your mind?
Well, that's the only one for now.
Okay.
I still can't remember the other one from last week because we were discussing some stuff and I meant to write it down to ask this week, but I can't remember offhand.
Do you remember what it had to deal with?
I can't remember offhand. But if I do remember, then I guess we could always bring it up again later.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me go on to some questions here that I got from some people. Let me see. Okay, I always have a harsh sibilance issue, but I can never get rid of it with the de-esser, with the vocal sounding boxy or overcompressed. I think I know what the issue is, but I want to let G answer this one. Could you give me advice, any advice towards this, please? And that's from Jarrell Sutherland.
Hey, Jarrell. Okay, so if I understand, every vocal or your vocal, how is this?
Do you want me to read it again? I know I kind of stopped. Okay, so I always have a harsh sibilance issue, but I can never get rid of it with the de-esser without the vocal sounding boxy or overcompressed. Could you give me any advice towards this?
Well, instead of going with the de-esser, you might want to just like ride the S's. You can actually cut them out from the track. It's a little more work there, but you can actually take all the S's out and put them on a separate track, and just bring that fader down. You can also use it to trig multi-band comp or something like that. That could help too. I'm just curious if it's like your vocal, you're recording it, or that those things might come into might come into play also there. Like if it could be your mic or something like that, or if it's just any vocal you get, it's always harsh and sibilant and stuff like that. I guess that's the only kind of question mark I had. But those little tricks that I mentioned could help avoid kind of what you're saying as far as like overcompressed or boxy sounding vocals.
And actually, I did kind of talk about something like this in the last webinar, and the person that asked the question, they were recording their own vocals.
Okay.
And the first thing I said was, check your room, because that's like usually going to be 90% of your problems. If you are recording yourself, it's going to be the basis of most of your problems, because if you're too close to the mic, the S's naturally are going to stand out, and all of that boomy and boxiness in the vocal is going to stand out. And if you're standing close to eliminate the room, then, you know what I mean, you have the problem. So you need to treat your room and then step back from the mic, and then that alone is going to get you a lot closer to your end goal. But again, if like G said, if you're mixing somebody else's vocals, then sometimes you just have to deal with it and then accept the fact that it's like, this is it. This is what it's going to sound like, no matter how much I try to make it sound good.
Absolutely. But those little tricks I mentioned, they could help you. Right? So if it is indeed you have no control over the original source, those are a couple things you can try. Usually, just going at it manually will sound more natural and will destroy the vocal less. I don't like de-essers, I have one that I like, but most of them I find change the sound of the voice like just too much. It's crazy. So when things change the sound in a negative way, I immediately take it off. So if you go manually, you'll probably get a better result. And if you do have control over the recording, though, check your mic placement. You can do the pencil trick by putting a pencil in the middle of the capsule when you're recording. That'll help kind of break that air.
I've never heard of that. I've never heard of that trick.
Okay. Well, I'll Google it. I definitely didn't invent it. Some old school guy showed it to me, and it works. It's not a savior or anything, but it'll help.
Can you explain it though? Because like for me, if somebody
you could tape a pencil on your mic so that it kind of goes right in the middle of the capsule.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like it splits like the sort of that air when you're there and stuff like that. So that Kleenex on the pop filter, things like that. There, if you have a metal pop filter, try a fabric one or whatever. And just, different things.
Okay.
You can do in the recording thing. Could be the mic too, eh? Not every mic is made equally for everyone, so it goes a long way there.
So many factors there.
I know it's
okay, so I had a question in my email here from Rico. He's asked me a couple of times here, and it kind of plays on this question that we just answered. But how do you take the harshness out of a vocal? Okay, hold on. Let me read it the way he wrote it, because I'm trying to structure it a little bit. But it says, how to take the harshness out of a vocal, and when I'm listening to a finished mix through headphones, it sounds like the vocals are too close, and it sounds like it's pushed upwards. So
okay.
you can...
Yeah, sure, why not? So harshness, I guess to me harshness ranks in the sort of mid-range frequencies. So you can try... going at it with an EQ might be too destructive to the vocal, especially like you need mid-range in your vocal for it to kind of pop out and stuff. So you can try maybe, like, I'm a big fan of dynamic EQ, so like to maybe like zero in on that harsh sort of spectrum wherever it may be. With I use the Waves C1S. That one works really well for me. Lately, also yeah.
High five to C1SC.
High five. Go. Lately, also the DMG Essence too is pretty bananas. There, that's a pretty wild tool that I picked up. That's a new one there too. Very transparent.
It's a multiband compressor?
It's it's a De-Esser / dynamic EQ, because you can it doesn't just stop at 5K there. You can go across the spectrum on it. So I've had some pretty cool results for that. So anyways, I'll zero in on kind of where it's harsh. You can shave off a few dBs there, and then kind of just rebuild your vocal tone minus that like sort of harshness. That'll be cool. And there was a second prong to that question, I think there was when he's listening in.
He says that it sounds like too forward or something like that, or too up close. Like I guess he can't get the vocals sort of in the mix, and I'm assuming that's because he's recording over a 2-track. That's my assumption.
Oh, possible. If that's the case.
Maybe you can give an answer for both scenarios as far as like recording when he has access to the tracks, or when he's just doing over a 2-track, just to kind of kill two birds.
Sure, yeah, why not? That's the thing, though. I mean, the only other question I would ask, though, is if there's any speakers or control room. Like, I mean, are you just mixing on headphones? Because headphones, they're great, and they give you a perspective, but it's a bit unnatural to have a speaker glued to your ear with no sort of acoustic space around it. So sometimes that's not necessarily even though it sounds a certain way in headphones, it might not translate that way. So little concerned about that. But I mean, as far as getting your vocal to sort of sit on a 2-track, well, now it depends on the 2-track. Everything's relevant, but things that I've done has been to like sort of sidechain the instrumental with the vocal, but only in the frequency. So I was using like the Waves C6 with the sidechain, and kind of just like ducking out a bit of that vocal frequency on the 1 to 2K there, and it'll kind of like just bring that down ever so slightly, and let the vocal kind of breathe on top. If it's too forward, though, you might want to start by bringing it down. It could be an effects thing too, with reverbs and stuff. If it sounds too forward and too dry or something like that, I want to try more delay or some micro pitch shift stuff to sort of help it sit better. On a multi-track, well, it's kind of the same thing for me, anyways. It's a question of blend and kind of knowing where you want it and the style of music. I mean, I don't know. I find more and more everyone wants the vocal loud and up front and dry. Like those are the requests I'm getting. So that's maybe you're doing something right there, and you're not aware of it.
Okay. No, that's cool. Stephen C says, "I see you fine gentlemen are bringing sexy back. Well done," and thank you for that comment. Okay, so Rob's asking, "What's your favorite De-Esser?" I know you don't like them, but if you had to choose,
manual ride, or like splicing it out and putting it. But no, honestly, the one that I actually paid money for, because I demoed a bunch from Waves, and they're cool, and Fab Filter, it's really good, and I've tried a few other ones, but to me they just kind of changed the sound in a way I didn't like. But I like the DMG Essence plugin for de-essing. I can knock off a lot of like sibilance with that, and it sounds cool, and it's awesome on like live drums to like tame ringing and overheads or hi-hats and snares, and it's a really, really, really great plugin. Honestly, they're like I tried other plugins from DMG, and they're all good, like the Equilibrium and stuff like that, but I could never really get it to it wasn't how I like to work, although it sounded really good. But this plugin, when I loaded it up, I was very impressed.
What was I gonna say? The De-Esser, I was gonna make a point that if you actually don't do manual riding on your DSs with either automation or clip gain or something like that, like G was mentioning, that's kind of his favorite use, and I actually agree with him. I'm kind of a dual de-esser. I'll do the manual, and I'll put a slight hint of the de-essing on the top just to kind of smoothen it out. But if you don't do that already, I would suggest experimenting in that zone, because you'll definitely notice a major difference in how your S's sound in your tracks, and they sound a lot more natural. You can still get that sound without it being irritating, which is good about the automation aspect.
Especially like nowadays, like vocals are very bright, so I mean highs are,
mhm,
you know, you need the way to control the aggressiveness, but still have, you know, that brightness and
yeah.
upfrontness of vocals and stuff.
Okay. Rohan Ro says, "Hello guys. In terms of mixing a song, is it better to mix an instrumental before inserting into a project, or bring all track stems raw for a greater overall control of each instrument?" Oh wait, let me select that. Okay, there you go. Did you get that, or do you want me
Yeah,
to
I
read
got
it?
it. I got it. I
Okay.
got it. I like getting everything. You know, because I might focus one day more on the drums to start and then kind of build or whatever. But I like having everything. You know, it kind of irritates me a bit when I have to only have part of the song, and then I mix that a little bit, and then I'm waiting for files and stuff like that. It happens, and you know, I deal with it. But I like having everything and just hit and play and figuring it all out. It's like a puzzle, right? So
Mhm.
if I'm missing pieces of that puzzle to start, well, it's, you know, whatever. It's just not as fun as having all the parts and seeing what I can do with it.
Okay, that was a pretty easy one to answer, I guess.
Yeah,
Um,
taste, you know, it's whatever you like.
yeah. So the next one is from Vangelis Apostolou. Again, I'm sorry, I'm terrible at names.
Hey, it's again, guys. It's my name gets butchered every time too, so I feel for you
I
guys.
butcher I butcher G's name every time I talk to him, so
Yeah.
don't feel bad. Okay, hi. I would like to know. Let me select this question first. Hi, I would like to know how you use reverbs in your mixes. Do you use layers like a short, medium, and a lush, and send your tracks to all of them to different percentages or different rooms, etc.? Do you have presets or just trial and improvising?
Reverbs. I'm still trying to figure out what I'm doing with reverbs. No, I don't have like the small, medium, large thing. I don't know. Maybe a long time ago I would start off with that, but no, I have a couple reverb plugins that I like using, and then it's really whatever the track calls. Like if I'm doing like a pop record, I probably don't want anything too big, or if I do, it's gonna have like some pretty wild pre-delay on it, so I don't hear it. You know what I mean? It's more gets tucked in. But so it's usually going to be like short rooms or you know, halls, but like very short, or even like a very short plate or something like that. But then if I'm doing something that's spacier, moodier, and stuff like that, so I don't have anything like specific that I have to have these types of reverbs. It kind of just comes with the feeling. One thing I do though is I cross the reverbs. So like my drum verbs, I might send a bit of vocal to them, or I might send a bit of guitar into the vocal reverb. You know, like I'll blend that in, and then I might slap like, you know, I might sum two reverbs together and send those to a track, and then put a compressor on that, and maybe have that like side chaining. Who knows? You know, like I'll do things like that with reverbs to sort of like kind of create space in a way. But for me, reverbs are just another tool like an EQ there. But that sounds like a cliche there, but it's just whatever kind of complements the sound. So I don't have anything specific for reverbs. I know what I like in reverbs, and then I go from there.
Okay. And Rob Heaney asks favorite drum samples, and I'm gonna answer this question for G. Well, actually, no, I'll let him answer it.
Rob Heaney, I hope it's my friend Rob Heaney there. Favorite drum samples? It's got to
Yeah.
be the Trap HQ there from Modern Mixing.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I have so many. I've been collecting drum samples for over 20 years, so I mean, I just, you know, whatever sounds good, I'll take it. But I really like the Modern Mixing Trap HQ, and that's not just a plug. I do actually use them on mixes and productions frequently.
Yeah, it's funny because before we actually came live, I was talking to G because we were doing some stuff in the studio over in Montreal, and we were, you know, doing some recording and some drum stuff, and you know, he was telling me how with the trap drums that he got from me, obviously, that he uses them on every genre. Which, you know, for me, when I first made them, I wasn't really, you know, planning on making them for, you know, pop or whatever. It's more just like a trap hip hop thing. But he tells me he uses it on everything, so I was like, oh, that's cool. It's kind of good to hear because, again, with music today, it's like you can literally take a trap drum and throw it on a rock mix if it sounds good.
Which
You
I
know?
have. So it's cool. There's a certain quality to like a forwardness to the sounds on that Trap HQ sample pack that's very pleasant. So if you haven't checked it out, go check it out. I swear you'll enjoy it.
Well, thanks for your recommendation there. Joshua, he's asked this question a while ago, and I wanted to get to it, but he says, how can we make a particular instrument stand out but not overpower, I guess, another instrument? I'm having a hard time with EQing because when I do something to one and phase another in, then they both sound muddy at the point that I EQ'd. Does that make sense?
I think so. I think you're trying to get like a presence in sound and not necessarily a volume. It's on like that's the thing. Trying to make things present, but without having to necessarily boost the volume up 6 dB is a challenge sometimes because like you know, it could be like you want that kick drum slamming, but sometimes it's not always about just taking the fader and cranking it. You know, so you can try cool things like just some parallel processing on that particular sound if you're having a hard time getting the sound with EQ or a bit of dynamic control, be it compression or whatever. You can try duplicating the track or sending it to an aux or whatever your DAW lets you do, and creating a process. So if it's like a guitar and you really want to get some mid-range in there, but when you grab an EQ and you put it directly on the thing, the mid-range is just too crazy. You can do like insane, a 10 dB boost on your mid-range, your 4K or whatever it is, and then just kind of tuck that in underneath, and you'll just kind of blend it, and you'll see it will be louder, but it'll be more present more than louder. So if you just bring that in a little bit, it'll kind of, like I said, just help bring it up without kind of overtaking everything. And obviously, if it's too loud, you can just bring the combination down or one of the two down, or you can do a bunch of things. So parallel processing will help a lot with sort of making things more present, I find. That's one little trick.
I'm just going to expand on his question a little bit because I'm interpreting it slightly different. Like what you're saying is extremely useful, but just in case.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Sorry if I didn't get it.
No. You may have. Maybe I'm wrong, but it'll give another question anyways. But what I'm thinking he might be asking is, having all of the instruments in a track, but have them sort of stand out on their own, but then at the same time not sound like, I guess, they're separated in a sense.
Oh, okay.
How can we make a particular instrument stand out but not overpower everything else, I guess, or overpower another instrument?
Well, if I'm wrong, and you're right, the way I would answer that then would be maybe taking your groups, like your drums, your guitars, your vocals, maybe bussing them, doing like the multi-bus kind of mix thing, so that you can kind of have some control over the different groups, and then you can it'll help you blend everything together, because slapping, say, a compressor on your drums and not on your guitars will kind of help. You can control them and then blend them to taste. I think that would be a good way to sort of have control over that.
Yeah. And just one thing I would add, and I actually said this last time I did a webinar, is that not everything has to be processed or EQ'd.
Nope.
So sometimes the beauty of a mix is the contrast of having a sound that kind of sounds dull and then having a sound that sounds sharp, and it gives you that sort of depth or that separation. So that's really the only other thing I would add, but like everything else that G said.
No, I know it's hard sometimes to not put a plug-in on things because it's easy to click away, but you don't always have to. And that, it was either one of your articles or one of your associates' articles there, but like not doing anything is also a mixed decision, and it's sometimes the right one. So don't. I really agree with that. Like it's just really get the sound, whatever fits the sound in the song. It's always about the music.
And actually, what you just said there about not doing something as a mixed decision. Actually, the first time I heard that, I believe, was from Manny American, and this was like an older Waves interview that they did. Okay. I think it was around 2005 or something like that. But yeah, that was kind of like. Well, I remember seeing that. I was like, how does he know not to do something, though?
It comes with years and years of doing it, I guess.
Yeah.
But, try to make it sound good without doing things. I always spend a lot of time just kind of balancing the faders, and then, I'll spend a few hours just with the faders and the sounds and just getting inspired, and then I'll try stuff on my buses and see if that works. And then, it's sort of like a drawdown, you know, from raw to what I need to process, and I get it wrong sometimes. So you know, just keep at it.
Actually, the good thing about mixing is that when you're wrong, you're not going to kill anybody.
Nope.
So you can always go back. You can always go back and change things or tweak things if you have to, right? Like some professions, if you know, for instance, I did electrical for a while. It's like if I screw up, I could potentially hurt somebody. You know, so that's why mixing is cool because it's a very creative domain, and if you do screw up, you know, oh well, nobody's going to die. So. Just keep practicing and keep beating away at it and keep screwing things up because eventually you're not going to screw things up. So at some point, there's going to be you're going to get over that hill, you know.
Absolutely, and don't be afraid to screw up because sometimes you get some really cool things by making a mistake or by misinterpreting something, and you say, "Wow, that's crazy," and you know, like it's just have fun. It's music. No one's dying.
Okay, so Jason has another question again. So let's bring him back and let's. Hello.
Yep.
There we go.
Okay.
We got him.
Okay. So my question was, let's see. There are times like you do a mix, right? And then today you did the mix, you finish, you're satisfied, and then tomorrow you listen to it and you're like, oh boy, what was I thinking? This sounds pretty not good. Then you edit it again. The third day you go back to the mix and it's like still not to your satisfaction. So at what point do you say, okay, this is good enough, I'm going to stop right there?
That, my friend, is the hardest thing, is when to pull the plug. I've been doing it for a while, and at the same, I can't endlessly mix. Like I have to stop eventually. So one thing I do is once I send it to the client, I don't listen to it anymore because for sure, if I listen to it again, I will pick out everything that bothers me. So that's me, you know, until the client gets back to me and lets me know that they love it, hate it, or want me to, you know, change things. Right. I will not. I just don't. I move on to the next track. So that's that. I think it comes over time. You know, when I used to mix, I used to want to listen to it in the morning. So when I mix, I get in the morning and I leave at night when I'm done. And I usually 9 times out of 10 send the mix out at night. And then and then get another mix ready for the next day and stuff like that. So I used to want to listen to it in the morning, and then when I'd hear it, I'd do changes, and then it'd go like to a day and a half of mixing, and I'd be all behind, and it would mess up my schedule. So now I just try to get it out, and then I don't listen to it anymore because, trust me, even I hear stuff on the radio that I mixed, and I'm like, you know, my ears are burning, you know. So and it sounds fine, everything, you know, it's a context for sure, but like it's. The thing is, you just do it, and you know, if you're mixing for yourself, that's one thing. If you're mixing for other people, know when to draw the line, because you know what, you're gonna spend 2 days on it, and then they may not like it, you know, and that's then you're gonna have to go back on it. So give yourself a limit, and just try to make it as great as you can in the moment. And you know what? Usually your first, I've learned this there, but usually your first instinct is the right one. So just go with the feeling. Your third and fourth and fifth, you know, thought process could be cool and could be better, but usually the first one you felt is the one that's right for what you're doing.
Understood. So essentially, you just leave it up to the client.
Well, no. I mean, I work until I'm happy. I have to be happy with what I'm hearing and stuff like that. But the thing is that I have to, you know, you have to move on. You can't dwell on it forever, and so. You know, once you're content, once you're happy, it's time to you know, put pause on that and go on to something else, you know. But again, if you're mixing for yourself, that's a whole different thing. If it's your music that you're mixing, I can't tell you how to get out of that funk. You know, it's just something where you're gonna have to, you know, either trust someone else to tell you that it's good, or you do it long enough where you know that it feels good.
Okay, cool. So does that answer all of your questions, Jason? Because we're going to move on to a couple other before we're out of time here.
So far, so good, yeah.
Excellent, excellent.
All right, thanks a lot. Okay, so let me go over to some more questions here. We've got a couple more. Okay, Andy Arthur, let's select yours. Because this tends to be a struggle, I think, for every engineer, especially in the learning phases of mixing. It's like the #1 problem, I think, and that is getting kick and bass to sit in the mix is a challenge for me. When the bass gets louder, I lose the kick and so forth. also the bass I put in the track, the thinner the guitars get. So I guess what's your process for getting the bass and the kick to sit in the mix, but not mess everything else up too?
Okay, that's a good one. I mean, you could do the carving EQ thing. I don't really do that though. I don't feel like I should suck out 60 hertz out of my bass so that my kick can live more freely. So I think the first thing that helped me out in the process was the multi-bus mixing, so having my bass separate from my drums. It just kind of gave me a separate control. You could do the side chaining thing. That'll work. That'll help sometimes. Again, depending on the music, and I know you touched on you did a tutorial on how to like just trigger the subs. You know, when you split up your you know, that's a cool trick. That'll help because the kick can just kind of suck down the sub part of the bass. Even for a rock bass there, right? You can split your bass and stuff like that. It's not musical genre specific there. Other than that, what I've learned too is that like on drums especially, the opposite spectrum of frequencies helps a lot. So on kick drum, although it's mainly a bottom oriented thing, if you add some high end to it, in the 10K, 15K, whatever, you know, and push it, it'll sort of help your kick kind of come through the mix a little more, and so concentrating more on the opposite spectrum of that instrument will help it kind of come out. Same thing with snares. If you go a little lower on the snares, you know, it's like the 100, 200, whatever. It'll kind of make the snare fuller sounding and also kind of just sit a bit more in the mix. But back to the kick and bass. And for the bass, well, kind of the same thing, you know, and you can try with parallel processing also on the bass, be it with a bit of distortion or something, so it kind of adds mid-range to it so that it's not, you know, don't focus too much on the fundamental of the sound and kind of like just try to get a little more of the surrounding frequencies of the sound involved in your blend of kick and bass, and I think that'll help a lot with kind of having them sit together and play nice. But yeah, it is a pain in the ass for sure. Also, you know, if your monitoring's a little off or whatever, it's going to be hard to dial that in.
Or you can just pick up Trap Drums HQ.
And they're perfect, exactly. You don't have to do anything.
No, but to sum up what you were saying, like everything he said is exactly, you know, I think that's why I like talking to him so much. 'Cause I think we're always usually on the same wavelength. But yeah, if you focus on the, like, you know, other things that are not necessarily associated with, like G said, just the fundamentals, and try to separate the bass and the kick that way, generally, at least I find things sort of start to fit themselves together. Like G was saying, add a little distortion to the bass, you know, add a little top end to the kick, and then they sort of start to separate on their own. So again, G, perfect answer there to that. So if you have any more problems with that, just send me an email, or you can send G. Actually, do you want to give out your email?
Of course. Yeah, guys, if you have questions, I don't always answer in the next 15 minutes because I'm working and stuff like that, but I'll be happy to take on. People have hit me up, all the time, and then they ask me questions, and I'm more than happy to answer them. You just hit me up at mixed, mixedbygee at gmail.com, and yeah, don't be a stranger, man. I definitely won't bite.
I wonder if I can throw something up on the screen. Again, this is my lack of skill here. Anyways,
can I write it in the chat window maybe, or?
Oh, actually, I can do it on the event page.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll put your email in there as well. Okay, so let's do one more question because it's almost 2.
Yeah.
Let me see. It seems like they're all coming in at the last minute here.
Of course. Again, guys, thank everyone who tuned in and checked it out there. I really appreciate everyone popping by, asking questions.
Okay, so I've been doing this for a while now, and I mix and master myself, and my sound is pretty good. My main problem is mastering complications was to get the tracks to sound at a constant volume level in comparison. I use RMS metering to check now and work. How about you? And that's Bukanmi Oyadapo. Again, sorry if I butchered your name, but yeah.
Yeah, mastering. I hate mastering. I've done it though out of necessity, and just sometimes people want it's not necessarily for commercial release, but to get, like, if you're doing an album, I mean, the main thing is listening. That's from all the mastering engineers that I've spoken to. Yeah, they have the meters, they have all the expensive equipment and stuff like that. But the main thing is their ears, and they just listen and they make sure that it just sounds cohesive throughout the whole thing. And that comes with time. Like I said, you've been at it for a while, and I'm sure when you started mixing, it wasn't as good. You need to put in as much time. If you want to be good at mastering, you got to put in as much time into mastering as you do mixing, and not see it as just the last step, and that's it. It's hard work. That's why I don't do it too much, because it's just another, to me, it's another mind state when you're mastering, and I truly appreciate guys that are good at that, because I find it harder than mixing, and that says a lot, actually, because mixing is not easy.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely another art form.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so what I did was I added your email and also your website on the main event page. So if you go to the event page, there's a wall there, and then you'll see his his email and also his website. And this will eventually go to YouTube. So if you're watching on YouTube, I'll just put it in the description below.
Excellent. You want to do one more before we say goodbye, or
you want another one? Okay. I know what you mean. Once you get going, you don't want to stop, eh?
I love this stuff, eh? It's our lives there, so.
Okay. Well, again, I didn't want to take up too much of your time.
No. I know. One last one there. It's
okay. All... Just for fun.
For fun, yes, of course.
Okay, I'm gonna ask this one that I saw because I feel like it's ridiculously important. Let's see if I can find it. Oh, here. Okay, yeah. This is by Emmanuel. Actually, wait. I think these are. Yeah, Emmanuel Kavanaugh says, if you don't have a perfect listening environment, are there any things you should always? Is there anything I guess you should do without having to spend a lot of money?
Well, it depends how imperfect the listening environment is, but I can tell you for sure I've been in imperfect listening environments for most of my career there, other than the fancy studios that I've worked at. You got to get to know the room that you're listening to the most. I mean, you need some treatment, though. You definitely need to control standing waves and stuff like that there. But if you have minimal treatment and it's not like it doesn't sound like a cave in there and stuff like that, just get to know the room, the speakers, reference, listen to tons of stuff, because that's the only way that your ears and your mind will make the association to what's good, or at least to what you're looking for. And headphones, try listening to on, I have this, I made it myself with my technician there, but it's like just like laptop speakers in a rack there that I used for referencing. Just multiple references, but like bad references, so that you can kind of hear what's happening in the mid-range and stuff like that, because that's where the energy of the mix comes. So, but mainly just listen to it a lot, to work on it a lot, and try to, if there's issues with the room, if there's ringing and stuff, I mean, it's going to be hard to dial things in. So, try to control the stuff as much. You don't have to spend a fortune to make a room sound good. You just need to get the right things and maybe spend a little bit of time, kind of fixing up a few things. But definitely, you can do it without spending $10,000. I can promise you that.
So, I'm going to ask you another question on my own, because I know you're dealing with some room stuff right now. But to touch on Emmanuel's question, he was asking about the cost of it and stuff. I always tell people, at least for me here, I'm in Canada, for like $500, you could take essentially a square kind of boxy room. You're not going to get it to sound perfect, but you can do a lot of damage. You can probably push yourself to at least 80 to 85% of the way if you just focus on the corners and doing your bass trapping, and then also your first reflection points. You're going to really, really start to hear and understand what you've been missing. So if you're looking to invest in your music and stuff like that, I always tell people, if you have $600 for an iPhone, then you have $500 to do your room. If you're serious about it, that's kind of what it boils down to. So just look up bass trapping, first reflection points, and those are literally going to change your life. And everything after that is kind of auxiliary. And I'm also going to be working on, because I'm looking at getting a new space right now, so I'm going to be doing sort of like a progression of how I get the space, and then all the treatment and everything that I'm doing. of course, it's not going to be a regular, home studio bedroom type of space, but it's going to give you an idea of the things that I'm focusing on, and hopefully I'm working to get some partnerships going with that. So you're going to learn a ton. Even me, I'm going to learn a lot of that too. So, but to expand on that, you're in a new room right now, and you're doing a lot of treatment. So maybe you can explain the process that you're going through right now, doing your treatment, and then also the importance of, like, why are you spending all the time you're spending to get your room treated properly,
Well, yeah, okay. So I was in a room, and it already had like some treatment to it, and I sort of just got in and started working. But I wasn't to my aesthetic taste, I guess. So I decided to sort of rip it all out and stuff like that. And then I had the room kind of bare as she is, and it sounded really weird. And then I made a few calculations just as far as where the waves are, where my listening position is going to be, speakers, and I played back. I consulted with a few people that I know because my room is attached to a studio that has a bunch of rooms, so there's other engineers there and stuff like that. So we talked and stuff like that. So I sort of made a compromise between aesthetics and sound a little bit and stuff, but I'll have a bit of diffusion and some absorption and stuff like that. And sorry, what are we exactly looking for as far as how much I'm spending or why I'm doing it, or
like exactly? So why not? Like most people, I'm not saying that a bedroom studio is bad, because I've worked, like you said, you worked in pretty bad rooms. I've worked in small rooms, and everything's doable. Obviously, small rooms are not to your benefit, but you can still get those rooms to sound pretty tight, or at least close to 100% as you possibly can. So it's more just like the importance, and even if you're in a small space, that you shouldn't think, well, because I'm in my bedroom or because I'm here, I don't really have the room to put panels. Like, there's always room where you can put something. You can, if you have to move your bed into the center of your, well, maybe not the center of your room, but out of the way so you can put a bass trap in it, it's doable. You know what I mean? Or work around your bed at least.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, no, I'm definitely not. I'm not spending tons of money. I mean, I'm spending some for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I made my own panels, and essentially that with like I said, a bit of absorption, and it mainly like it's just it focuses in the sound, and you can hear it. Like I was telling him, with the room bare, I can't hear like reverb tails and stuff. So that's a huge problem. I need to hear those things. It's the finer details that you're going to lose if you don't kind of control your room a little bit, and it's very important. It's the #1 tool before getting speakers or plugins or whatever. Get a room that's like you can listen to, and that's where your money should go first and foremost, and then into everything else.
Yep, exactly. And again, you don't have to buy a new place or get a new space. Like if you're working in a small bedroom, you don't even have to make your panels look pretty. Get some mineral wool or insulation, wrap it, even if it looks like crap. Just put some fabric around it, stuff your corners as much as you can, and then again, your first reflection points, and I guarantee you're going to start hearing things that you've never heard before in your mixes. And I tell this to everybody, that was the one thing out of everything that I've ever bought in my entire studio career, mixing life or whatever, that was the one thing that changed my mixes overnight, like immediately. I was like, wow, my mixes actually kind of sound decent now,
No,
at least I was
change it day and night. And if it doesn't make your mixes better, it'll make you kind of appreciate sound a little better, because it's pretty wild. Like I said, just taking off the little treatment that I had in my room, I lost so much precision as far as just the little details. Reverb tails that freaked me out the most, because I was putting a reverb on a vocal and I couldn't hear the definition, the grain. That like I got panic there. I was like about to cry or whatever. I was like, I can't do it. And so I referred to headphones and stuff. I mean, I got the mix out and I did my job, but it was just a lot harder. You work twice as hard for half the result, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Yes.
Okay, cool, man. So again, I really, really, really appreciate you taking out some time. Like I said, I like to always touch base with you at least once or twice a month, because I know you're always experimenting, so it's always nice to see what you've been doing, what you've been working on, and also new plugins or tricks that you've acquired. So yeah, again, thank you for allowing me to do this, and then sharing your knowledge and everything with everybody else that's watching this, and then allowing them to ask you questions as well. That was the really cool part, I guess.
No, it's cool for everyone to come out. My pleasure, guys. I live for this. I love it. There's anything I can do to help people is more than my pleasure, because it's a long journey. So any help along the way is amazing. So.
Mm-hmm. All right, cool, man. So that's it, and I guess hopefully we can do this another time.
Absolutely, man. Just let me know when.
All right, cool.
All right, guys. Take care.